this is a very significant Torah portion, right? And what is interesting about it is at a... hang on a minute. There we go. There are no notes going with this, so hopefully what I put together I will be able to remember. All right. Okay. So this is a great Torah portion about moving forward. It is a very significant place in the narrative story of the wilderness wanderings. Okay? Because for all intents and purposes, this is the end of the wilderness wanderings. You have, at the end of the book of Numbers, you have some, there's still a little bit more to go, but the traveling has basically come to an end here. And there, as we will see, that it is a period where the period of Moses is winding down. Okay, the life of Moses is not over yet, but we'll call it the Moses period is beginning to wind down. Aaron is already deceased, right? As is Miriam, right? And the children of Israel are at the plains of Moab. So if you look in your Bible, in the 25th chapter of Numbers, which is where we are here, the Torah portion actually begins a little bit past this spot. But every year, even in our Torah study, we have to start 9 verses earlier so that we know the story of what's going on. So in Numbers chapter 25, it says at the beginning, while Israel remained at Shittim, the people began to play the harlot with the daughters of Moab. Okay? So Shittim, we know where that is. That's on the plains of Moab. It's right across the river from Jericho. Okay? So they're there. when this takes place, they're there. They're at the plains of Moab, which is where all of Deuteronomy takes place. Those last speeches of Moses. But the traveling is over. If you turn on your own to Joshua chapter 2 and verse 1, you see it says where this place is. This is where they sent people over, to Jericho to spy it out, right? So very important that sometimes when we read the 5 books of Moses, we and it's not a bad thing, we tend to see it as one linear thing, but it really isn't. The book of Deuteronomy is, the entire book is Moses giving some speeches at the very end. Okay? But really it is here where you have this narrative of certain events taking place which epitomizes a transition of time. Okay? So you have 3 short narratives here in this portion that teach us about what it takes for a congregation to move forward. Whether we're talking about the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness, whether we're talking about whatever grouping it might be, our entire Messianic Jewish movement, or we're talking about Beth Messiah congregation, or maybe just our own lives, whatever it might be. And so what you have here is a demonstration of wise mentors, really a wise mentor, and then empowered disciples, whether you want to call them apprentices, trainees, followers, congregants in Israel, but it is really fascinating. So we have 3. The first one is the story of Pinchas. I know in your English Bible it's called Phineas, right? But that is like not even a good translation. I don't even know where that comes from. It reminds me of a cartoon character like 45, 50, 60 years ago. But anyway, Pinchas is his name. And this is in the first 18 verses of Numbers chapter 25. Interestingly enough, and this is such an ominous thing that's taking place here in the wilderness. You know, after all this time, here they're already there. The 40 years have basically gone by. This is the end. And in a way, the worst possible thing is taking place. Like, it's not like it was bad in the middle and now it's getting better. You know, this is like the low point. Why is this the low point? When we think about Israel in the wilderness, we think about people murmuring, right? Murmuring against, against Moses, the leadership, or just complaining to God. Why are we in the wilderness? We don't like the journey, and so on. But since the golden calf, this is the first time where Israel really apostatizes, where Israel goes after a false god. That doesn't happen. Even Korach didn't do that, right? Even when the people decide they're not going to go into the land, that had to do with trusting God, but they don't join themselves to a foreign god. But that happens here. Isn't that amazing? It happens here. And it is basically, what most people understand this to be, is this is the end of the first generation. This is like the first generation is now going to die out now. And it ends on such a somber, low note. And of course, this issue of going after other gods is kind of what's going to happen all through, Israelite history. Always this issue of being attracted to foreign gods. And of course, there's a lot we could say, about this. We read here in verse 2, "For they invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods." So Israel joined themselves to Baal of Peor. Peor is like a mountain, but it is Baal. Okay, so Israel joined themselves to Baal of Peor, and the Lord was angry against Israel. And the Lord said to Moses, "Take all the leaders of the people and execute them in broad daylight before the Lord, so that the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel." Very similar to like the golden calf. Remember, Moses has to intervene. God is going to do away with everyone. So Moses said to the judges of Israel, "Each of you slay his men who have joined themselves to Baal of Peor." Then behold, one of the sons of Israel came and brought to his relatives or his brothers a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation of the sons of Israel while they were weeping at the doorway of the tent of meeting. When Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he arose from the midst of the congregation and took a spear in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and pierced both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman, through the body. So the plague on the sons of Israel was checked. And those who died by the plague was 24,000. Okay. So the people were joined to Baal of Peor. I mean, that's a very strong word. You know, it's like being unequally yoked. They were yoked to this foreign god. And I just have here what the prophet Balaam could not do with his words, he and the people did by enticing them to sin. We read that he was the instigator here, chapters down the road, in chapter 31, I believe, that Balaam was the instigator was the instigator of this, right? So the sin is, the people have done this, but it's heightened, it becomes accentuated, right, by these two children of prominent leaders. You read farther down who they are. And they both are the children of leaders. One is the leader of the child of the tribe of Simeon, and one is the child of a Midianite leader. So this was not just, who are these two strange people from the fringes engaging in this? Okay, but they were children of prominent leaders engaging in this sin right before their eyes. So Pinchas is the grandson of Aaron, right? And he immediately acts. Right? And a little bit farther down, this is referred to as he made atonement, meaning here, in this case, that the anger of God was averted and the plague was halted by what he did. Okay? And God heartily agrees with this act. And as it says a little bit farther down here, in verse 11, Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, has turned away my wrath from the sons of Israel, in that he was jealous or zealous with my jealousy among them, so that I did not destroy the sons of Israel in my jealousy. God is jealous not in the sinful kind of way that we usually use the word, but protective of his name, and zealous to protect the name of God and the name of Israel. So then he says, say therefore, behold, I give him my covenant of shalom, my covenant of peace, which in a way is kind of like putting his hand on Pinchas and saying, I am personally endorsing your priesthood and the priesthood of your children. And so Pinchas becomes a very important person. He is in the line of Aaron, right? He is a grandson of Aaron, but he becomes, so to speak, the point person here. Okay? So, interestingly, you don't read about Moses doing anything. Moses is there. Right? It says that he's there. But Moses is not the one who strikes these two people. Moses does not say to someone else or to Pinchas, Pinchas, go and do this. Right? Moses is interestingly quiet in this entire thing. Now, this is his great nephew, right? We want to get that. So this is his great nephew. And I would suggest to us that Moses shows wisdom here by not getting in the way of Pinchas. You may hear other people talking about this and saying, Moses was now old and he wasn't sharp anymore, perhaps, or it was like a lost cause. I've been dealing with these people for so long, what's the point? What, as my grandmother used to say, what's the point in talking? And so, but I would suggest that Moses shows great wisdom here by not getting in the way of Pinchas. Moses was a man after the heart of God, and clearly Pinchas did something that God wholeheartedly approved of, right? Pinchas demonstrates leadership in being a spiritual advocate here, in having a vision for what is right, and in his heart knowing to do the right thing within the boundaries of God and his heart and his word. He didn't, so to speak, go off on his own. I think that's important. He didn't just go off on his own. That clearly he was led by God, but he showed great courage in being a spiritual advocate. He showed great initiative in doing the right thing, right? He is not usurping the role of Moses, like Korah was trying to do, right? And so it's a very interesting. It is a very interesting demonstration, I think, of the wisdom of a leader and the initiative of a younger leader, of a younger person. Now, the one thing you don't want to get here, and I think in the Darash I actually said this. You know, when you read a text like this is not advocating for going out and killing people. Okay, I just want you to get that. Okay, yes, at that moment in that time, yes, that was what God would have them do, just like at the golden calf and other times as well. But there certainly are these lessons to learn. Another lesson to learn in this, I can't help but say it, even though I'm kind of talking about this leadership issue here, is being careful not to be joined to sinful practices. Not to be joined to sinful practices. And also what is really interesting here is, how are these people enticed? These were, I will say, the worship of Baal Peor was sexual deviant behavior. And this enticed the people. And so we ourselves in our world have to be very careful of these things, of the things that tempt us, you know, whether it be sexual or not, the things that tempt us and you know, draw us to be joined to what is not of God, right? Certainly, very important lesson here. All right. And so we see here that Moses remains the leader of the people, right? God gives this covenant of peace. This covenant was a covenant. This covenant of peace was a covenant relationship between the priesthood and God, and the priesthood of Pinchas and God. But it is important. Moses remains a leader of the people. This was a moment in time. It wasn't now Pinchas coming and saying, okay, I did this thing, so now, Moses, you move aside. No, not in the least. Moses is still a leader of the people. In fact, he is so until he's dead. You know, there's never, Moses is now on the sidelines. He's the leader until he dies. But we see that this young priest takes this initiative here, while Moses is quiet. Makes for great conversation. Okay, now the second one. There's three. The second one. The daughters of Zelophehad. Okay? This is fascinating. This is in Numbers chapter 27, in verses 1 to 11. I think I'll just read it here. Okay. By the way, what chapter 26 is a new census. Is a new census. After the plague, a new census. This is, in a sense, saying the new generation. You know, this new generation. It says at the very end, by the way, of chapter 26, at the very end, in verse 63, 64, and 65, these are those who were numbered by Moses and Eleazar, the priest, who numbered the sons of Israel in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho. There you are. See, that's where they are, right? Eleazar is still a priest, by the way. Isn't that interesting? That's Pinchas's father, right? And they number the people. But notice it says that, but among these there was not a man of those who were numbered by Moses and Aaron the priest earlier, like way earlier, right? Moses and Aaron, who numbered the sons of Israel in the wilderness of Sinai. For the Lord had said of them, they shall surely die in the wilderness. And not a man was left of them except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. All right. So now a whole new thing. Then the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, came near, and these are the names of his daughters: Mahlah, Noah, Haglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they stood before Moses, and before Eleazar the priest, and before the leaders of all the congregation. Again, you want to notice, isn't it interesting? Pinchas is still underneath Eleazar, right? Not usurping anyone's role, not having those like hubris, to say I'm the main man now, right? So you still have Moses and Eleazar, the priest, and so these women stood before them, before the leaders and all the congregation in the doorway of the tent of meeting, saying, our father died in the wilderness, yet he was not among the company of those who gathered themselves together against the Lord in the company of Korah. But he died in his own sin, and he had no sons. So they're making the point. He wasn't part of that Korah crowd, right? But he's from the first generation, and so he's dead. Why should the name of our father be withdrawn from among his family because he had no son? Give us a possession among our father's brothers. The way it was that sons would inherit the land, and this is how a family name would be remembered. And Moses brought their case before the Lord. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, I'll just read the whole thing. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, the daughters of Zelophehad are right in their statements. You shall surely give them a hereditary possession among their father's brothers, and you shall transfer the inheritance of their father to them. Further, you shall speak to the sons of Israel, saying, if a man dies and has no son, then you shall transfer his inheritance to his daughter. And if he has no daughter, then you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. And if he has no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to his father's brothers. And if his father has no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to his nearest relative in his own family, and he shall possess it. And it shall be a statutory ordinance to the sons of Israel, just as the Lord commanded Moses. So this is really very interesting. You have a situation, an unanticipated situation has developed. Okay? Now we're talking thousands of years ago. Okay? This is not now. This is not the 21st century or the 20th century or the 19th century or the 18th century, or keep going back, right? This goes back thousands of years. It was highly unusual for women to come up before Moses and sort of like state their case. This was a very unique situation here, right? Now, put yourself in Moses' shoes. He's seen it all, right? He just saw this unbelievable sin take place right under his nose there, right? He has seen all kinds of threats to his leadership, threats to godliness, all of it, right? But what does Moses do? First of all, the women have the courage to challenge the way things have been done. And they're not challenging God or the Torah or anything like that. They're actually not even out for themselves with what they say. They want to preserve their father's name, what was given to their family, right? So Moses is a wise leader, and he listens to them. He doesn't dismiss them. He doesn't just sort of like, oh, first of all, you know, who do these women think that they are, right? And how outlandish to hear something like this, right? And so Moses listens to them, and then he prays. He goes to God. He doesn't just shoot from the hip. He doesn't just say, you know, we've never done things this way before, and so therefore we don't do it. You know, we're very used to that, believe me. But Moses listens to them, he prays, and then acknowledges that they're right. Doesn't that take a lot of humility for a leader like Moses, you know, to be able to say? He listens to them, he prays, and he acknowledges that they're right because God tells him. This is the answer to the prayer. God tells him, right? Oh, okay. I'm not done here. Okay. So in this, we see, again, what a wise leader Moses is. That not just a strong leader, you know, but a wise leader. Notice in the first case, he is silent while Pinchas acts. Here, he listens to what these daughters of Zelophehad have to say. Okay? And so, you know, it really reminds us of that passage. Moses was the most humble man on the face of the earth. One of those verses that Moses probably didn't write that's in there, right? And it tells you something about the heart of Moses, even though he had sinned and so on. It tells you really something about him and the kind of leader that he was. One of the things I think you see about Moses here, well, in the first one it had to do with holiness. Here it's more about ethics. Ethics. You know, what is right? What is just? What is the correct thing to do? It also tells us something about the Torah itself. That there is a level of flexibility without going outside of its bounds. That's also very, very important. In fact, you know, in the Jewish world, this passage is used as a proof text of the oral law. Here you have the Torah being given, you know, and then additional oral law. I think I'm just saying it's just interesting. This is a proof text of it. I'm not saying it's right or anything. I'm just saying it's interesting, right? But it does tell us that here you had a unique situation that needed to be addressed that didn't involve sin. It didn't involve usurping what God had previously said, but a level of flexibility. It's very interesting. All right. And so that's the second one. So you see here, again, the wise leadership of Moses, and you see that these women take the initiative and come before Moses. Okay. The final one is the commissioning of Joshua. This is all in this Torah portion. These three events right there on the plains of Moab. All right? God tells Moses, this is very interesting. God tells Moses again, you know, that he's not going to enter the land. Look at 27:12. Okay. Then the Lord said to Moses, you know, right after the daughters of Zelophehad Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go up to this mountain of Abiram and see the land which I have given to the sons of Israel. And when you have seen it, you too shall be gathered to your people, as Aaron your brother was. For in the wilderness of Zin, during the strife of the congregation, you rebelled against my command to treat me as holy before their eyes at the water. These are the waters of Meribah, of Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin." So this is a very interesting little 3 verses here. First of all, with the daughters of Zelophehad, the inheritance is not in the wilderness; it's in the land, and that Moses is concerned about things being done well in the land that he's not going to see or, be able to experience, right? And what comes immediately after this statement now is the commissioning of Joshua, right? Now, Joshua had been with Moses for most of the wilderness wanderings. It was a 40-year mentoring relationship. It wasn't just simply that Joshua and Caleb remained faithful, in desiring to go in the land. But we read about Joshua all the way back in Exodus chapter 17 about fighting the Amalekites. And if you remember, chapter 17, that's before chapter 19. That's before Sinai. This is right from the time that we're introduced to Joshua, basically, within weeks after the parting of the waters of the Red Sea. Okay? So he is with Moses the whole 40 years. Okay? We also read, very interestingly, in Exodus chapter 24, he is with Moses as Moses is going up the mountain. But he can only go so far because Moses has to go alone. So he has had a lot of experiences and a lot of training with Moses, right? But now it was time to publicly make it known, to give Joshua authority. So what do we read here in verse? Let's see, 15 of the same chapter. Moses spoke to the Lord, saying, "May the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over the congregation, who will go out and come in before them, and who will lead them out and bring them in, that the congregation of the Lord may not be like sheep which have no shepherd." So let me just say here, again, it's a great leadership thing about Moses. Now, he is going to ask again if he can go in the land. But not here. He doesn't complain about it. What he immediately says is, "Then, Lord, you got to appoint somebody to take the people into the land. Because, boy, I've been with them for 40 years. And they definitely need someone to take them into the land. They're not just going to go themselves." And so isn't it interesting how concerned he is for the plan of God, and not so much for the plan for himself, but for the plan of God. Okay, so then the Lord said to Moses, "Take Joshua the son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay your hand on him." And of course, a man in whom is the Spirit. Clearly, Joshua was a godly man. We read this in other places about raising up elders full of the Spirit, not just people who could do a job, right? But internally, the first thing is not just he's a great warrior and he's a great leader. No, he's full of the Spirit. Okay? And lay your hand on him, and have him stand before Eleazar the priest, and before all the congregation, and commission him in their sight. Very important that the people see that Moses is raising him up. That it's not just, well, Moses is dead, who's going to go? Well, wait, Joshua, who do you think you are? Because that clearly is what would end up happening, right? But we see Moses in front of everyone, basically, commissions him, lays his hands on Joshua. And he says, and you put some of your authority on him in order that all the congregation of the sons of Israel may obey him. And that's basically what takes place, and we read here in verse 23 at the very end, then he laid his hands on him and commissioned him just as the Lord had spoken through Moses. Moses was wise in preparing the nation for the future. Moses realized, this wasn't just about him. The future of Israel was greater than his own life. It's interesting, at the end of Deuteronomy, basically the Torah, 5 books of Moses, ends when Moses dies. And it is in Joshua, the next book, number 6, didn't make the top 5, right? Where the children of Israel go into the land. It's rather interesting that the Torah ends in the wilderness, by the way. That's another great thing to chew on. The Torah ends in the wilderness. It is not until Joshua leads them into the land, right? But, there's another one. Yeshua, like Moses, of course, a greater Moses, was a wise leader. He prepared his disciples for the time when he would not be physically present. Right? This is, you read in John chapter 14 and verse 12 that they will do greater works. They'll do greater works. There's a lot of things we could point to. Do you know that in the 10th chapter of Matthew, Yeshua sends his disciples out on a training mission? Basically, he sends them out and then to return. And they learn. They learn by their own serving, making a few mistakes, and then returning about what it is like to be a leader. There's a lot of things we could say about the leadership of Yeshua. There are books, of course, written on the leadership of Yeshua about how he trained people. A great book that's about 125 years old. It's called The Training of the 12. Anybody ever hear that book, The Training of the 12? It's probably, whoa. Okay, well, I'm sure it's out of print, but a fascinating book about the apostles and about the kind of people that they were before, and what they became. And how Yeshua trained them. Really a great book. I'm sure it's out of print now. Training of the 12. But A.B. Bruce is the author's name on that. But anyway, Yeshua says they would do greater works. And then in his priestly prayer, before, when he prays before his arrest there in John chapter 17. It's a lot of verses. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But beginning in verse 9, he prays for the apostles and for the people that they would lead to faith. It's really very interesting that, he prays for them, that, they would be empowered and they would be encouraged and so on. So he prayed for them. He demonstrated what it means to be a spiritual leader, and so on. In verse 9 of John 17, he says, I ask on their behalf. I do not ask on behalf of the world, but of those whom thou hast given me, for they are yours. And all things that are mine are yours, and yours are mine, and I have been glorified in them. And then, he says in verse 11, I am no more in the world, and yet they themselves are in the world, and I come to you. Holy Father, keep them in your name. And then he goes on to continue to pray for them. And so we read a lot about Yeshua as a wise leader. And he calls them, be my witnesses. In Judea, in Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, even to the remotest part of the earth. So he spent those years, they weren't just his helpers. It wasn't like Yeshua needed helpers and the apostles were his helpers. Well, they were his helpers. But he was discipling them. He was training them for future leadership. Very, very important. And so finally, what do we see in both Moses and Yeshua? We see it in this week's Torah portion, and we see it also in Yeshua, that we see that they mentored people that they knew were going to come after them, right? They modeled good leadership in how they handled situations. And they motivated the people under them clearly to serve. And so when you think about Moses and Yeshua, great leadership models. And Moses in particular, whom we read about in this week's portion. I think it really is something to dwell on, that Moses learns here that he's going to die in the wilderness. But he doesn't fall apart, he doesn't quit. We see that all the way to the end, Moses is a great leader and always preparing for the future. Pinchas, Zelophehad's daughters, not Zelophehad, he's deceased at this time. Pinchas, the daughters of Zelophehad, and Joshua, what do they demonstrate? Great humility, initiative, responsibility, passion, and courage. And that is what makes for people to become great leaders. And so we learn that as the children of Israel get to the plains of Moab, Moses prepares for the future, yet he himself will be the leader until he's dead. But he is prepared for what's going to come after him. And that is something that we should always be thinking about, right? Whether we're raising children, whether we're parents of children, whether we're a manager somewhere and we have a responsible position over others, or we are in a congregational setting like here. All of us need to always be thinking about moving forward to the future. And as we think that way, God will indeed bless and provide, just like he did for the children of Israel going into the land. Let's pray. Lord God, thank you, God, for these stories in the book of Numbers that teach us a lot about how we should be living, and about our way of life, and about our passion, and our courage, and responsibility, and taking initiative. Lord, thank you that Pinchas, Zelophehad, and Joshua did their thing under the leadership of Moses. And thank you, Lord, unlike Korah and unlike others, Lord, we thank you, God, how you prepared Israel for their future, a future beyond the wilderness, and a future beyond Moses, how you prepared them to enter the land. Lord, may we learn from these great truths. We pray in Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Howard. And